40ounce wrote a post on Doomer boards on May 3, 2025 responding to a question about what the true reason is for Doomer boards project being banned from being posted on the Doomworld forum. The post is as follows. This took a long time and caused a lot of headaches to write. I had to take breaks pretty frequently. Sorry it's so verbose. You gotta keep in mind that for 10 plus years I've been completely no contact with the Doomworld moderators and the affiliated parties. I've been banned all this time. I wrote up some notes about what happened before then, but I'm really in the dark about everything afterwards. Forgive me, I'm reaching into my faulty memory here. There's a lot of missing information that is lost to time. I've been in lots of Doomworld private messages and chat logs and I didn't think at the time that I would need to back them up. Prior to being banned I thought many of the influential members on Doomworld were cool with me. I've talked to many of them on my WXR podcast, and I don't remember us having any friction then. I really don't know what has changed the course up to this point. I can try to give you some kind of a synopsis about my Doom community experience up to my Doomworld ban, but keep in mind that I don't really know how much of this information is still connected to the decision to ban DBPs from the forum. My path to being a Doom person that people know. 2006 to 2009, I sorta started making multiplayer maps for Zendronum, previously known as Skulltag, on the Skulltag forums which no longer exist. As I started to make friends and share more screenshots and talk about Doom, I was eventually invited to an IRC chat room called #Jetsons, which was basically a collective of talented mappers. I think the Jetsons joke was that Essel Forsham had a Skulltag project series in progress called Space DM, so the chat room involved a lot of inside jokes and references to space which sometimes bled over into the forum. It was fun. The chat room made it easier to get quick feedback on mapping works in progress. It was nice to get to know the other mappers and talk about our interests, which also included poking fun at newbie mappers on Skulltag forums posting really awful maps. Skulltag forums had a pretty huge disparity between extremely talented mappers and truly unplayable Z-Doom scripted maps that the creators would crutch by bloating them with ripped resources. I remember there being debates on the forum about the concept of elitism, where the talented mappers were being protested against for delivering harsh criticism far exceeding what new mappers were capable of responding to. The concept of elitism escalated towards people that made pretty decent maps too. I never fully understood what Essel's beef was with Tormentor 667, creator of Realm667.com, but he's had a pretty influential role in projects like Knee Deep in Z-Doom, Stronghold, On the Edge of Chaos, and Wolfendoom Blade of Agony. His maps are pretty great in my opinion, but Essel negged a lot of the stuff he was working on and I still don't really know why. I remember it being kind of the basis for Knee Deep in Z-Doom, Essel's most recent release that was in development even back then. Essel Forsham becoming a Doom World moderator. 2010, Skulltag forums were kinda silly because a lot of us were teenagers and in our college years, including moderators which sometimes overpoliced the forum. I remember there was a moderator named Metalhead who was a real hard ass. At one point Essel Forsham, considered to be a voice of reason, was invited to be a moderator on Skulltag forums, which, from my perspective, went mostly okay. Then there was some kind of an internal conflict between Essel Forsham and Metalhead, I believe. Or maybe it was someone else, or perhaps multiple people. I don't remember what it was, but it ended with Essel Forsham writing a blog post on Doomworld saying that she's officially resigning from moderating Skulltag forums. I remember that blog post being something akin to a #MeToo situation, where Essel revealed a lot of information that she was confided to keep a secret about, and I think a few other moderators also resigned, and the resulting people were left panicking about their crumbling empire. I forget the details about it, and it's probably not important now, but it felt like a big deal at the time. I think the very next day Essel Forsham was offered moderator privileges on Doomworld forums instead and she accepted. Doom the way Ed did, my first serious conflict with Essel. 2010 to 2011. Unrelated to Skulltag, someone on Doomworld by the name of Hellbent pitched a community project idea now known as Doom the way Ed did. At first it had a slow start and had trouble getting off the ground. I and a few other new mappers saw it and thought it was a cool premise. If you don't know, the objective was to design a community project that closely imitated the look and style of the original Ultimate Doom maps without making direct references or tributes. I attempted to make maps in the way John Romero or Tom Hall might make and posted my drafts for people to play. As I was doing this, I was sharing some screenshots of stuff I was making for this project in the #JetsonsIRC chat to get people's thoughts. At this point, Essel and I had talked pretty frequently in this chat and we were pretty tight. I remember Essel was always very quick to answer mapping questions and would always have really brilliant commentary on matching textures and details together to create a nice-looking map. Her vocabulary to speak about the smaller details of Doom mapping was unmatched. The Doom the Way Ed Did project started to pick up some more traction. Essel and other more talented mappers participated and shared interesting insight about what separates an ed software Doom map from the usual custom map tropes we're used to making. The #DoomTwidIRC chat room soon followed. Eventually the project snowballed into something huge, climaxing with John Romero registering to doomworld to leave some comments about the kinds of maps he would have liked to make for Doom if he had more time, which was really exciting. The project ballooned with a few megawatts worth of submitted maps. Since it was understood that a Doom 1 WAD with a limit of 27 map slots had to get released at some point, the conversation about making cuts had to happen. The people involved in the decision-making seemed to favor maps made by the more talented, elite mappers, which I found really troubling. I was vocally against the project being saturated with top talent. The concept of imitating the original Doom maps that are under-detailed, and often flawed, seemed like a low barrier of entry that talented mappers and newbie mappers should both be able to participate in together. I was really unhappy about beginner mappers with great ideas getting their maps shelved without an opportunity to respond to what needs to be improved. A particular point of contention was that there were a few different submitted maps specifically designed for the E1M1 map slot, and the conversation around this was that the original start map has the most iconic opening shot of all time, so Doom Twid's starting level had to be good. I recall working with Hobo Master on his submitted E1M1 map. I thought his map was really good and an improved starting room would make it a real banger. I tried to see if I could salvage his map by rebuilding the starting room to fit what people were looking for. I designed and pitched a half-dozen concepts for starting rooms from his map in the #DoomTwid chat. Essel Forsham was quick to shoot down every single one. Too orthogonal, too angular, too random, too flat, too much height variation, needs windows, not bright enough, nothing I posted was good enough. I was getting really frustrated with heeding everyone's comments and still getting shot down with every attempt I made to address them. Shortly later, well after we already had way too many maps in the project, Essel shared her first map, which was her concept of the E1M1. It was unanimously well received. I don't know if Essel planned this to disqualify every submitted E1M1 map so she could finish her map in time, that's an assumption I'm making, but to me it surely felt like it, and I felt deceived. I decided to back off from participating in the #DoomTwid chat room, and instead write up a post observing patterns from the EWADs for the forum thread. I wrote some thoughts about Ultimate Doom maps for mappers to refer to that were still updating their maps. Once posted, pretty quickly, Essel Forsham jumped in and dissected the post and wrote commentary refuting the validity of every point. I was just trying to be helpful, and once again I found this very destructive to the spirit of the project. That was a final straw for me and I responded to her post. This sucks, I'm not enjoying this anymore and I want my maps pulled from the project. It was unfortunate timing since the project was close to the finish line already and a few of my maps were already slotted for the final release. The way I saw it was that if the people that showed up later in the project to take charge don't want to listen to me when I was there from the beginning, then I'd rather free up my map slots for someone else who really wants to be in this project and couldn't make the cut. Everything else. 2011 to 2016, from this point on is a little bit of a haze for me. Essel Forsham and I were not really on speaking terms anymore. I thought the way she carried herself in Doom the Way Ed Did kinda sucked, but she commanded the respect of more people than I did, and ultimately I felt at a loss. I tried to invest more in my other friendships with people besides Essel. In doing so, I vented to many people about being really frustrated with Essel over this whole thing, and I'm fairly sure some of these rants probably did find their way back to her. I've always been pretty loud and persistent about my opinions, including in political discussions. I didn't fully understand the right versus left politics, and despite engaging with it, I wouldn't have been able to tell you which of the two I most align with. The distinction between the two parties did start to reveal itself later, first I think with Gamergate and then later with the 2016 presidential election. It started to become clear to me then that there were two very opposing parties. I remember in my high school history class taking a political alignment test, and your score would show you which party you most closely align with. I scored far left in the test. I was also listening to a lot of crust punk music at the time, which had powerful lyrics that made it clear to me that there is a lot of unresolved injustice in the world that wouldn't be addressed without violent civil unrest. As I approached my 20s, a violent uprising seemed less and less realistic, and my attitudes shifted to complacency and acceptance with our current systems. I think that can probably be understood to be more of a right-leaning attitude. Today my opinions have kinda circled back to what most would consider leftism. UAC Columbine Ultra 2. 2013, I borrowed Du's help for playtesting the Episode 1 release of UAC Ultra 2. He left me with some pretty helpful commentary on my maps, and as we were approaching the end of March I told him that I was prepping to have this released on the anniversary of the Columbine school shooting. He insisted it was a bad idea and that I shouldn't do that. I neglected his advice and posted the project on April 20, 2013 anyway, concluding the release thread with the phrase, "Happy Columbine School Shooting Day. Kill 'em all." It was a very divisive comment. Doom Radio and WXR. 2013 to 2014, Alfonso and Tarnsman and perhaps a few other people collaborated to revive a lost gem of 2004 called Doom Radio. I was a superfan right away because I could speak endlessly about Doom and I was so ready to listen to other people talking about it. I offered to be interviewed, I offered to find guests, I offered to create conversation topics for future episodes, anything to help produce this show. I vaguely recall one of the comments in the revival thread on Doomworld said it would be great to interview people from the original id Software team. In my excitement, I found Tom Hall's profile on Facebook and wrote him a message to ask him if he would be interested in doing something like this. When he accepted, he asked what date. I ran back to the thread to tell everyone that Tom Hall was locked in. Alfonso replied saying that I really overstepped here, as they were not at all prepared with questions for Tom, and were probably already lining up other episodes. He wasn't sure what to do with this, and he said I could do one of two things: kindly tell him that the idea is postponed, or I could just interview him myself, but not under the Doom Radio brand. I didn't want to throw this opportunity, so I reached out to a friend I knew from high school and asked him to help me make a show. At the time, I was getting sucked into the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, and I thought to myself, oh, I can do that. I thought it would be best not to get bogged down with preparation and post-processing. Whatever happens, happens. If it's awkward, it's awkward. I fired off a bunch of private messages to invite people on the show, and we quickly padded the WXR show with a few scheduled episodes pretty fast. While Doom Radio was producing each episode months apart, WXR was filling up entire seasons. I recall some people being frustrated with me for interviewing people less respected on Doomworld without confronting them so hard on the issues. One interview with Joe Ilya took place after he was banned, and I gave him a platform to share his angle, and I listened with compassion without challenging him on it. I thought I was being impartial. I could be reaching here, but I think that interview and possibly other interviews with other Doom community underdogs may have contributed to some people's perception of me as a right-wing goon. Cool Kids Club, 2014 to 2015. I'm not really sure how she does it, but Essel somehow manages to mobilize a lot of people to speak to her defense, intentionally or otherwise. I've never really found anyone to agree with me on this with any level of certainty, but there was a group on Doomworld that all shared an array of similar militant opinions. Having spoken to Essel in chats for a few years, I do understand a few opinions she has that she speaks with strong convictions about. A couple examples are Eternity being a severely underrated source port, Graf Zoll's handling of GZ Doom is really shitty, incompatibility with gameplay mods is the gameplay mods problem not the mappers, and exploring vanilla limits to their fullest potential is badass, just to name a few. Keep in mind that I haven't talked to Essel in nearly 10 years, so I don't know if any of these opinions have bended in this time. Plenty of people post their Doom opinions on Doomworld forums, but when someone on Doomworld would speak in opposition to an opinion Essel would have, not even directly to Essel, just an opinion that Essel would likely disagree with, members of this group would show up seemingly out of nowhere and aggressively shoot this opinion down. There was no way to prove that the people were conspiring together to do this, but some have pointed out that the people in this group, sometimes referred to as the Cool Kids Club, basically had untethered means to spam post and hurt a person's feelings without consequences. As long as they were succeeding in making said person feel stupid for saying something like, "Back to Saturn X should be modified to be compatible with Brutal Doom," then they could get as loud about it as they wanted. If the person protested and fought back, it would usually result in the person getting their thread locked or their account temporarily banned for causing a ruckus, citing combative or trollish behavior on the forum, rules that the Cool Kids Club seemed impervious to. It wasn't exactly clear who was in the group or not. At first it seemed to start with a proliferation of anime avatars, but anime avatars are everywhere now, so this is not as much of a profile description anymore. Seeing as some passers-by would sometimes have parallel opinions, it also served to hide who was in this club and who wasn't. I remember people like Tarnsman and Do seeming like vicious guard dogs for Essel. If she wasn't available in the moment to object to the opinion herself, surely Do and Tarnsman would get to it as soon as humanly possible. There were more cool kids, but I'm failing to remember names off the top of my head. I remember it feeling weird that people I didn't know very well seemed so sure that I was being an asshole. I felt like a target, and for a few years I felt like I had to be very careful about how I share my thoughts, or I would surely have my posts sent to post hell, locked, or I'd be dogpiled again. Doomer boards. 2014 to 2015, Contra Commando posts threads about new updates regarding the upcoming presidential election, very excited to see Hillary fail. He would post them in the Everything Else subforum, and if the debates got too heated, they would get locked. This eventually birthed the idea of Doomworld, eventually renamed to Doomer boards, and hopefully you're caught up to the history at this point thereafter. With my one foot in Doomworld and another in Doomer boards, my participation on Doomworld was under much more scrutiny. Essel was issuing warnings to me more frequently. The last one was for a post I made towards Linguiza in jest. I recall confronting Essel about this in a private message. I did make sure to screenshot this one because I was pretty sure my fate was sealed at this point. This is the message. 40 ounce. Hey. Pardon my ignorance, I'm not sure where to look to get this information. What exactly are these warnings? I've made a lot of friends here and I do a lot to help the community out the best I can with podcasts, tutorials, private testing, and editing help. I don't know the severity of these warnings, but you are firing them off pretty nonchalantly, based on subtext and intention that I'm not sure you're entirely confident about. Am I on the road to being banned? If that's the case, could you kindly please cool it? I really don't have anything against Linguiza. I'm just goofing around. He has been sarcastic, dissenting, and dismissive towards me, but I don't take it very personally. I haven't received any clues from him that he does either when it is coming from me. If he would like an apology, I would be happy to give him one. Essel Forsham responds. Bans are entirely at staff discretion. Warnings are primarily used to keep other staff members in the loop about misbehavior. I'm not the only one who has taken note of your lengthy history of passive-aggressive posting, so if you value your presence here, try improving your behavior. 40 ounce replies. Thank you for the clarification. You have used this term before, passive-aggressive. Are you entirely sure that's the issue here? I'm certainly open to apologizing if I'm taking a step too far, but you are asking me to speak for someone else. I'm merely reciprocating sarcastic and dissenting responses that were used towards me, many of which are fairly recent, and therefore contextual. We have all said things in the past that we may not stand by today. You should know as well as I that we're all capable of changing once new information has surfaced. I'm not entirely convinced that the only reason you're issuing these warnings is because I should be accountable for reconciling for many years of impartial activity on this forum. If the issue lies in numbers, I think you'd agree that we're both looking at this through two different lenses. I hope you're aware that there's a certain respect gained from being in a position of authority, genuine or not, which I obviously do not have. If we could lift what's at stake here out of the equation, the posting privileges, moderator privileges, and friendships, and look at this objectively without anything to lose from either party, I'm fairly sure you know I could certainly find many more people who value my presence on these forums than you could find people who prefer that I leave permanently. My concern is really not about how I value my presence here. If I'm gone from Doomworld forever, I'll still continue mapping, playing Doom, and helping people create their maps in another way. I'm hopeful that I'll find one way or another to reach the friends I've made here. The issue is that you'd be cutting off the only known medium of communication that many of these people have with me. These are people you likely have no biased opinion towards or against. This is why I'm kindly asking you to consider what I'm saying and withdraw your hand from the warning button whenever I speak where I can be heard. It is unrealistic and unfair to judge me in the nature of a completely uniform public servant. People enjoy entertaining each other and we should all be in a position where we are allowed to do that. Essel Forsham quotes only the first sentence from the above excerpt. Thank you for the clarification. You have used this term before, passive-aggressive. Are you entirely sure that's the issue here? Essel Forsham adds her one-word response. Yes. 40ounce adds Lingwiza to the thread and writes the following message. Hi Lingwiza. I recently received a warning point for a joke I made at your expense. I'm not sure how you felt about it. Essel Forsham suggests it was really malicious and I wouldn't want you to take it that way. If that's the case, then I hope you will believe in my sincerity when I say I'm sorry. I was under an impression that we have been taking jabs at each other's ego for some time now, but I haven't been particularly hurt by it. It just felt like we were goofing around. I'd like it if you could weigh in on this so I'm not being overtly and unjustifiably dickish to you in the future. Lingwiza questions. Why have I been CC'd on this? That seems pretty passive-aggressive. 40ounce follows up. To answer your question, it's because I am speaking directly to you. Essel Forsham is taking action because she is very sure that I have nefarious intention to hurt people such as yourself. I know this not to be true. I'd like to know from you if you feel I've been especially rude to you. I don't want you to feel that way, so I'd like to apologize for my actions if that's the case. Lingwiza responds. My personal opinion of your posts directed towards me are irrelevant. But since you decided to drag me into this, I will say that your attitude towards Essel suggests a strong and an undeserved sense of entitlement. From what I can tell, it sounds like you're saying she should refrain from giving you any sort of warnings because to ban you would serve to deprive everyone else of your presence here. This is, of course, entirely backwards. If you are concerned with the Doomworld community being deprived of your presence, then you should feel compelled to avoid any behavior that could jeopardize your standing here. Not to lecture a moderator that they should take a light hand with you because we would miss you if you were gone. 40ounce replies. Thanks for the follow-up. I agree that a sense of entitlement is certainly a factor here. It is understood that my long post history is contributing in some way to these new warnings. People without a long history aren't under the same level of examination. The message in the warning says that I'm being aggressive and that I need to change my behavior. I'm interpreting this to mean that the content of my posts isn't directly offensive, but that there is hidden subtext behind it. Is that correct? The order to change my behavior tells me that if the exact same opportunity to make that type of joke were to come up again, which it won't, then I have to not make the joke. I have heeded my warnings before. In the past I've been much more cruel, and I've scaled it back considerably. But now my posts are falling under the vague label of being passive-aggressive. Well, here I am. I'm laying all my cards out on the table. No jokes. No sarcasm. No vague notions and no subtext. I'm just explaining my exact intentions and apologizing for the miscommunication. Yet, the tone of this responses would suggest this is not very well received. So what exactly is the issue here? The message is sent. A few days pass with no reply. Neither Linguica nor Esselforsham respond to the thread. 40ounce follows up again. Hello? You have my full attention and complete cooperation here. As far as changing my behavior for passive-aggressive posting, in other words, suppressing the range of interpretation of the message on the part of the receiver, I can't think of anything left to do other than to communicate my exact intentions as clearly as I can here. If there's nothing left to discuss, then we're not going to have any problems like this in the future, is that correct? Linguiza then replies. You are correct that we are not going to have any problems with you receiving a warning message for your behavior in the future. 40ounce then replies to Esselforsham. Okay, so we know Linguiza could care less, which was exactly what I expected. So do you have anything else left to say about this? Or should we agree your reasoning is bogus? Esselforsham then replies. Knock off the attitude and stop playing dumb. Your toxic behavior has been a known pattern here for years. Playing dumb isn't going to get you any sympathy, and it's not anyone else's job to teach you to be a better person. You are the guy who posted a Columbine anniversary celebration and went out of your way to spread rumors about posters you didn't like. Take responsibility for your own actions. If you need your hand held through what it means to not be an asshole, then you are all but insisting that we show you the door. 40ounce replies. I'm certain you would not be able to find a single person to look at the context of this situation and say I'm not taking responsibility for my actions. I'm asking directly for clarification for what it is you are trying to communicate to me with these warnings so I can respond in a manner you agree with. I'm not arguing the fact that I posted about a Columbine anniversary many years ago. I'm not sure about the rumor spreading part, but maybe you have something documented that would refresh my memory. In either case, I don't know why you would expect me to defend myself about that. Facts are facts. You clearly have a perception that I have an attitude and you're stonewalling me when I ask your thoughts about it. I'm willing to work with you to clarify that I'm being completely genuine here. So what's the problem? Esselforsham leaves one final reply. Fix your own shit. The private message thread ends there. Anyway, I'm confessing as much of my crimes as I can think of. There's been 10 years past since this all happened, so anything regarding what Doomworld thinks about Doomer boards and the projects thereafter is really muddy to me. I'm in acceptance that the Doomer boards project ban on Doomworld won't be lifted, but having been banned from Doomworld for so long, I really don't know what prompted the banning of the projects or what I was expected to do to stop it.